Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of TXN Sports World. I am your host, Anthony Florio, joined as always by good old Meth, Michael Fletcher. We are awaiting perhaps the presence of Michael Bullock. If he comes in, we will catch him up on what he missed. If not, then we will have him. Hopefully, he'll be back with us tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk. Now, I know I had said that I had planned on starting this show here with the Celtics chat for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. But Michael Bullock is not here, so I'm going to have to make a little switcheroo here. So as soon as Michael Bullock does come in, we will get to the Celtics chat from Game 1 immediately as he comes in. So with that being said, let's start it off with the story I had initially planned on starting this show with here. And that is Doc Rivers has been fired as the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers after 3 seasons. So let's dive on into that. All right. Philadelphia 76ers dismissed coach Doc Rivers on Tuesday, the team announced. The Sixers were eliminated in the Eastern Conference semifinals for a third straight season, losing 112-88 in Game 7 to the Boston Celtics this past Sunday. The search for a new coach is expected to include the likes of Mike Budenholzer, Sam Cassell, Mike D'Antoni, Nick Nurse, Frank Vogel, and Monty Williams, sources told ESPN. Rivers delivered a 154-82 record in his 3 seasons, including 54 wins this season, the franchise's most since they went to the NBA Finals in 2001. The Sixers were one of 3 teams in the top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency, according to ESPN Stats and Information Research. Philadelphia joins the Milwaukee Bucks, Phoenix Suns, Toronto Raptors, and Detroit Pistons among teams with head coaching openings. Rivers, who delivered his 16th straight winning season as a head coach, lost for the 10th time in a Game 7, including 5 in a row. The defeat to the Celtics also marked the 9th straight time that Rivers lost with a chance to reach the conference finals. Now Philadelphia heads into the offseason not only conducting a search to replace Rivers, but also needing to navigate James Harden's impending free agency. After Sunday's Game 7 loss in Boston, Harden was asked about the state of his relationship with Rivers and whether he believed the coach should return for a 4th season. Harden simply said, "Our relationship is okay." So that's pretty much the story here, because the rest of this revolves around James Harden. So, but nonetheless, he was doing some good things in Philadelphia. Obviously, had a great season this past season, finishing as the number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference before losing to Bullock Celtics in the conference semifinals this past Sunday. Had a 3-2 series lead. We're 1 win away from going back to the conference finals for the first time since 2001, but obviously that did not happen. So he obviously had to take the fall for this because, we all know the Philadelphia 76ers, one of the most prominent franchises in NBA history. They have a very high standard of success and winning. And it's obviously that management decided not to trust the process with Doc Rivers and decided to dismiss him after 3 seasons. And I think it's obviously because of his championship pedigree. He took the Boston Celtics to an NBA championship in 2008, got them to the finals a couple years later, put together some great teams over the years, but only 1 championship to show for it. Could have had 2, should have had 2, but obviously that didn't happen. So Philly obviously playing the impatient game, saying we can't wait. We can't keep waiting for a championship here. So we gotta do what's best for our organization. Get rid of you. So you got a lot of great candidates out there. You heard that list of candidates I just mentioned. So any of those guys would be a great fit in Philly. You got Budenholzer, who was unceremoniously fired in Milwaukee 2 years after he took them to an NBA championship, their first in 50 years. Mike D'Antoni, who's had a lot of great success in Phoenix in the 2000s. Nick Nurse, who back in 2019 took the Toronto Raptors to an NBA championship, Frank Vogel, who took the Lakers to the NBA championship in the bubble in 2020, and Monty Williams, who took the Phoenix Suns to the NBA Finals in 2021. Any of those guys would be a perfect successor for Doc Rivers because all those guys have championship pedigrees, with the exception of D'Antoni, who never made it to the NBA Finals, if I recall correctly. Conference Finals, yes, but NBA Finals, no. So, but, you know, it's a shame. It's a shame it had to come down to this, but, you know, obviously they couldn't wait anymore. And, you know, their championship window is not closing. As long as they keep those core guys together and they figure out how to deal with Harden and, you know, keep him happy, and you know, you keep Embiid and all those great young talents like Maxey and all them, I think Philly will be fine regardless of who their new coach is. So Doc Rivers, we wish him the best, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up, who knows, maybe Doc Rivers could end up being in one of those vacancies that I mentioned. So, because, you know, I don't think it'll be long before he finds work again. So, but that's the story here. So, not much more to say on this. So, MF, Doc Rivers fired after 3 years in Philly. You heard all the names that could replace him, and you also heard some of the list of teams that he could possibly end up, because based on his body of work, I don't think it'll be long before he finds work again.
Oh no, absolutely not. And you know, there's a lot of teams out there that are looking for a head coach, and you know, he could end up with a rival. He could end up with Milwaukee because you know they have an opening now after Mike Budenholzer got fired. Nick Nurse, he could end up going to Toronto. Nick Nurse got fired and he's there. Maybe going to Phoenix. Phoenix inexplicably out of nowhere firing Monty Williams, and you know, that would probably be the best position because you got Kevin Durant, you got Devin Booker, you got CP3. Now, what happens with DeAndre Ayton, who knows? There's been rumors that maybe James Harden goes to Phoenix. All of a sudden, if that happens and you got Doc Rivers as your head coach, I think the NBA title goes through Phoenix next year. So, I mean, there's a number of ways this can play out, number of ways this can go. I like it. I like the layout, what's going on. Obviously, I feel bad for Doc, man. Doc Rivers was a great head coach. We all know him from being the man. That was the guy that led the Boston Celtics to the NBA championship a few years ago. And, you know, after that, it just never worked. You know, then with Philly, you know, they believed in trusting the process. And Philly had a good team, but they never got over the hump. They never got to that next level. Even in when he was with the Clippers, never got over the hump, never got to that next level. Even though they had a championship caliber team, I think what he needs is a reset. Any of those teams that he puts is going to be a playoff team because you've got a great roster of talent that he can work with. Phoenix would probably be the prime spot for me. Then the next spot, I gotta say, is the Milwaukee Bucks. I would think Milwaukee would be the perfect spot for Doc Rivers to land. If he lands in either one of those two spots, if I'm that team, I am ecstatic because you got a championship winning coach, a very good coach that can really do some damage. So, yeah, it didn't work out in Philly, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it will not work out in another position because with the rosters that they got, I think they're a coach away from taking that next step. And Doc Rivers is definitely a guy that you definitely would want to consider being the next head coach of your team. Anthony, it's yours.
All right, and we're staying with the NBA, and I'll make the announcement here. If Michael Bullock does not come in tonight, then we'll have to do a two for one deal when it comes to the Celtics chat tomorrow night. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye on him. Hopefully he'll join us soon enough, and then once he does, we'll get right into that. So In the meantime, let's continue on. This past week, I believe, was the NBA draft lottery. And from 14 to 1, number 14 was the New Orleans Pelicans. Number 13 was the Toronto Raptors. Number 12 was the Oklahoma City Thunder. Number 11, the Orlando Magic via the Chicago Bulls. Number 10, the Dallas Mavericks. Number 9, the Utah Jazz. Number 8, the Washington Wizards. Number 7, the Indiana Pacers. Number 6, the Orlando Magic. Number 5, the Detroit Pistons. Number 4, the Houston Rockets. Number 3, the Portland Trail Blazers. Number 2, the Charlotte Hornets. And the number 1, the winners of the 2023 NBA Draft Lottery, the San Antonio Spurs. The San Antonio Spurs secure the number 1 pick and the right to draft French phenom Victor Wembanyama in the 2023 NBA Draft Lottery. Charlotte Hornets, Portland Trail Blazers, Houston Rockets, and Detroit Pistons round out the top 5. MF, San Antonio winning the draft. It's been a long time since they've had a winning team. Could this be the start of them, getting back to prominence, perhaps?
Yes, and I believe it will. With Victor Wembanyama, the French phenom, 7'4", with a wingspan that is almost 8 feet long, and him being a 3-point assassin, a great in and out guy. His length is amazing. His height is impressive. There is a little bit some injury concerns because of the fact that he is very small in stature. He needs to build that up. He needs to get a little stronger. But he is a sharpshooter. He is a facilitator. He will dunk. He doesn't even need to jump that high to dunk a basketball. This guy has the makings of so many great things that he is without a doubt the most highly coveted NBA prospect since LeBron James. That's a major thing to say about this guy. Everybody wanted this guy to be on their team. Everybody wanted the number 1 overall pick. The last time we had a consensus number 1, Zion Williamson. And we all know what happened there. So, everybody wanted him. The biggest stunner was the Detroit Pistons, who was projected with the number 1 pick with 14% to win the draft lottery and dropped out of the top 5. They dropped from the number 1 to number 5. It was an emphatic moment. We all lost our minds. We were stunned when Mark Tatum, the deputy commissioner of the NBA, when he turned around and said that with the 5th pick in the 2023 NBA draft was going to be selected by the Detroit Pistons, there was an audible gasp in Chicago, and my jaw hit the floor because I was like, oh my God, what does that mean? Portland went up. Charlotte went up. Houston had a shot. And of course, San Antonio. Then the numbers started dropping. Houston at 4. Okay. Portland at 3. I honestly thought Portland was going to win this. When I heard Portland jumped, I was like, oh my God, Portland could win this. And trust me, if Damian Lillard would have gotten this guy, this would have been a 2-headed monster. It would have been a great future for him. Number 2 goes to Houston. It goes to Charlotte. And San Antonio wins it all. The last time the San Antonio Spurs had the number 1 overall pick, they just picked some guy from Wake Forest. He was pretty good, named Tim Duncan. Anthony, you remember Tim Duncan, right? He He was pretty good.
Yeah, he was,
He was all right. He was a
yeah.
decent player.
Yeah. Timmy Duncan, all he did was, have all these winning seasons. And how many titles did he lead him to? Oh, I don't know, 4 or 5.
Yeah, 4, 5. Was a Finals MVP multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's an all one. I think he's like one of the 100 greatest players in NBA history too, if I remember correctly. So I mean, yeah, San Antonio is set now. There's going to be a lot of debate about how it was going to go, what's going to happen. If you're San Antonio, you're like, well, now all of a sudden, we now have the franchise guy. If we build around him, maybe we might have an opportunity. Now, there was one debate, there was an argument about Greg Popovich, his age. A lot of times, Pops it's my way or the highway. This guy's a generational player. I think he'll listen because he's going to have people around him. Obviously, the French love San Antonio because remember, there was another French guy who played for the San Antonio Spurs. His name was Tony Parker. And we know how great Parker turned out. One of the best point guards in the game, NBA world champion, finals MVP as well. So trust me, when even the player himself, when he found out that the number 1 pick was going to San Antonio, he must be over the moon right now because of how much he gets to be taught and is under the wing of the greatest coach in NBA history with Greg Popovich. And yes, I know there's going to be a lot of people saying, Michael, you're out of line. That was a little bit of a harsh statement to make. No. Right now, if there's one coach I would want to be with in any NBA situation right now, Greg Popovich is the guy. He's the mentor. He's going to be hard-nosed. Yes, he's going to be a whippersnapper on this guy, but what makes him unique, what makes him amazing is because he is one of the best. You want to talk about a Mount Rushmore of head coaches in NBA? Greg Popovich is right up there with the elite, with some of the best in the game. So for me, San Antonio, they were hoping for a miracle. They got the miracle. Give it 5 years. Give it 3 to 5 years. I'm telling you guys, if they put the pieces around them and put the right pieces there, I think San Antonio could make a run. Not now, because it's way too soon. But once they get him, once they do the free agency, once they work and get things together, I think San Antonio could be poised to make yet another run down the line. Not now, but down the line. The future looks so bright with the San Antonio Spurs now. And let me tell you, San Antonio might become another destination spot again. Remember back in the time when they had the triplets, Ginobili, Parker, and Duncan. I think if they put the pieces together and put talent around this megastar, San Antonio we might be talking about San Antonio possibly becoming an NBA championship contender again. And let me tell you, it's been a long time since we talked about San Antonio. San Antonio has not made the playoffs in 4 years. I'm not going to say this year, but maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line, we might be talking about the Spurs making the postseason again. And then maybe down the line, if everything goes great, we might be talking about them being a championship contender again. So sometimes the NBA draft or these drafts, they help teams push them to that next level. San Antonio was looking for a lifeline. They were looking for something because they've been struggling the last couple of years. And now all of a sudden, they got the ultimate lifeline. A generational talent that could become the next big thing in the NBA. Anthony, it is yours.
The Spurs are the lucky organization that won the 2023 NBA Draft Lottery and have earned the right to select Victor Wembanyama with the number 1 overall pick. To say Wembanyama is a franchise changer is an understatement. He will be the clear top option here on this roster from day one, even with Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson, who combined last season to average 40 points a game. And due to the state of the roster, we'll get to see him explore the studio space and probe the upper bounds of his shot creation ability for a coach that mentored 2 of the best all-time bigs in David Robinson and Tim Duncan. So that's what pretty much that's what it's all about here. They haven't had a winning season since the 2018-19 season, which seems crazy to say out loud given its track record of success under Hall of Fame coach Greg Popovich. Before these 4 years, the team posted a winning record in 22 straight seasons, including an absurd run within that streak of winning at least 50 games in 18 straight seasons. But despite this downturn, this past season was essentially only year 1 of their true rebuild. So they got their centerpiece, and now we anxiously await and see what happens, when the next season starts. So congratulations, San Antonio, no doubt about it, and what happens with that. But right now, we go from one draft lottery to another draft lottery. The NHL draft lottery. And from bottom to top, here's how this played out. Number 16, the Calgary Flames. Number 15, the Nashville Predators. Number 14, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Number 13, the Buffalo Sabres. Number 12, the Arizona Coyotes via the Ottawa Senators. Number 11, the Vancouver Canucks. Number 10, the St. Louis Blues. Number 9, the Detroit Red Wings. Number 8, Washington Capitals. Number 7, the Philadelphia Flyers. Number 6, the Arizona Coyotes. Number 5, the Montreal Canadiens. Number 4, the San Jose Sharks. Number 3, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Number 2, the Anaheim Ducks. And number 1, Matt Ward, celebrate, because it is your team, the Chicago Blackhawks. They are the number 1 team. They get it. And, well, what else is there to say? The Chicago Blackhawks won the NHL Draft Lottery, and with it, the chance to add who many believe is the next generational NHL talent, center Connor Bedard of Regina of the Western Hockey League. The Blackhawks, who at 11.5% had the third best chance of winning the lottery, would pick number 1 for the second time, the first since the 2007 draft when they selected some young man who, oh, by the way, currently plays for our New York Rangers, that being Patrick Kane. I heard that kid was pretty good. All I remember is
all right. He was a pretty
yeah, he was all right, wasn't he, Doc?
He was okay. He was okay. Yeah, he was okay. Stanley Cup champion.
3 times over.
3 times over. His goal won the Stanley Cup over Philly. We're still trying to find the puck, by the way. We didn't know where it went. It's hidden somewhere in Philly.
Yeah, we're trying to find that puck, brother. No doubt.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find that puck indeed. So yeah. They'll find it eventually. I know they will. But nonetheless, Chicago gets it, and Chicago winning it, and they finished 26, 49, and 7. One of the worst teams in the NHL this past season. By the way, the remaining teams, picks 17 to 32, will be determined by the results of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And by the way, we got a thriller going on right now. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. So, which we thought was over, but it turned out not to be. So we'll have more on that in a bit. Chicago finished 30th in the NHL. They could use the number 1 pick to select Bedard. The 17-year-old forward who has been targeted as the number 1 pick of this draft the past 2 years is number 1 on the NHL Central Scouting's final ranking of North American skaters presented by BioSteel. If the Blackhawks decide to select Bedard, he'll be the second Bedard to play for the NHL franchise. Connor's great-great-uncle, defenseman James Bedard, had 2 points, 1 goal and 1 assist in 22 games for the Chicago Blackhawks from 1949 to 51. Connor, a right-hand shot, led the WHL with 143 points, 71 goals, and 72 assists in 57 games with Regina. He also had 20 points, 10 goals, and 10 assists, including 6 multi-point games in Regina's 7-game loss to Saskatoon in the first round of the WHL playoffs. He was the first WHL player since 2012 to score at least 10 goals in a playoff series. Bedard excels in all areas of his game, including a shot that is reminiscent of Toronto Maple Leaf center Austin Matthews, who, oh, by the way, was also a number 1 draft pick in his own right back in 2016. Bedard also helped Team Canada win the gold medal at the 2023 IIHF World Junior Championships in January with a tournament best 23 points, 9 goals, and 14 assists in 7 games. Most points ever for a Canada player and the 4th most by any player in World Junior Championship history. So that's the story with that. So congratulations to Chicago, and if they get him, oh boy, he could be the young man that gets the Chicago Blackhawks back to prominence. Because not too long ago, they were a dominant team, with those 3 Stanley Cup wins in 2010, 2013, and then 2015. So they haven't had that same level of success. They've had a couple of good years here and there, but they haven't really done much of anything. And this year, they were one of the worst teams in the NHL. So, we'll wait and see what happens with that. So congratulations, Chicago Blackhawks. So not much more to say here. So MF, Chicago Blackhawks, the winners of the NHL draft lottery. And if they get this Connor Bedard kid, oh boy, they could be right back in prominence in no time.
Like the Sheway deal, Connor Bedard is without a doubt the most highly anticipated and the most highly coveted guy that you're going to get. So for them to win that draft lottery and to get this number 1 overall pick is a humongous deal, more than anything else. It was a great moment for them, a great victory for Chicago, even though a lot of people didn't want Chicago to win it, but they did win it. So, and this is where I think a lot of people started to complain about that they felt like that the fix was in on it. But, it is what it is. But what they did was the right thing. Connor Bedard is without a doubt a generational player. There's not much to talk about that, especially when you're talking about amazing guys in the end, in the league, and for them to get it is just a remarkable outcome, to say the very least. And yeah, I'm happy for them. Congratulations to Chicago for winning the draft lottery, for getting the number 1 overall pick, and to get Connor Bedard. That's a great pickup for them. It's gonna be that's gonna be a really big outcome for them. So we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. And yeah, so there's really nothing more for me to add here, Anthony. Like I said, I think a lot of people in the NHL was rooting for Anaheim or some other team to win it, but then you find out it's Chicago. Then a lot of people started yelling, "Oh, the fix is in. Bettman wants an original 16. He wanted Chicago to be back in relevancy." But then you watch the video, and this is why I am glad that I posted it, because they show the 4-ball combination of how Chicago won it, and sometimes that happens. So. Then the next thing you know, it was right after that. Then you find out that Anaheim got the 2nd pick on the 2nd draw. Then the 3rd draw, it took a little bit of some time. Eventually, we did get there. So, yeah, no, at the end, it was a wow more than anything else. But Chicago won it. They get the number 1. Congratulations to them. And for Loyal, there's nothing more to say. So it's upward and onward we go. Next story.
And we are going to talk about the XFL Championship. The Arlington Renegades completed the ultimate Cinderella story with their 35-26 win over the DC Defenders in the XFL Championship game last Saturday night. Unsurprisingly, Arlington quarterback Luis Perez was at the center of it. Perez starred for the Renegades, going 26 of 36 for 288 yards and 3 touchdowns, named the game's MVP after leading Arlington, which sported the XFL's worst scoring offense during the regular season at almost 15 points a game, to points on 7 of its 9 drives against what had been a stingy Defenders defense. So there isn't much more to say here. MF, the Arlington Renegades, they finished 4-6 on the season, and then in these short playoffs, all they did was beat, without question, the 2 best teams in the XFL this season. The second best team in the Houston Roughnecks, and then the best team, the team that had been so dominant during the regular season, the DC Defenders, who only lost 1 game during the regular season. And this team, wow. And
It's a
talk up another championship for one of the all-time great coaches in the history of college football. Bob Stoops adds another championship to his trophy case. What a story.
Yeah. Bob Stoops was I mean, we all know the number of Big 12 championships he won. He won a national championship for the University of Oklahoma, and I think Dede Woodson and Kevin Woodson would definitely give us a litany of stories about Bob Stoops, and especially around their time of around their great time and their great run. But without a doubt, this was a remarkable run. I think none of us thought Arlington was going to win it, but they did. They earned it. They deserved it. They worked their hearts out. They fought as hard as they could to get to that finish line, and they got there. And then, like you said, to knock out the 2 best teams in the XFL to get to that trophy, they deserve it, man. It's a great story. It's a comeback story, one for the ages, and congratulations to the winners. The Arlington Renegades, the most unlikeliest winners of the XFL, but my God, did they deserve to win it all. So great story for them. Nothing more to say. Anthony, it's yours.
Yeah, Luis Perez endured a difficult season, struggling with the Vegas Vipers before being traded to the Arlington Renegades in Week 7. Kept a positive attitude amid his struggles, and he said that he was willing to fight to prove that he was a starter. Perez did exactly that after being traded. First, he provided stability at quarterback for his new team. Coach Bob Stoops credited Perez with galvanizing the squad, and the effects could be seen during the Renegades' unexpected postseason run. Arlington, the only XFL playoff team with a losing regular season record, was able to upset the Houston Roughnecks and then the DC Defenders to become the XFL champions. And so fitting it was for the XFL, a league that prides itself on providing opportunities for overlooked players, to crown a big underdog as its first champion since the LA Extreme all the way back in 2001. You remember they had that 2020 season, but unfortunately it got kiboshed because that's when Uncle COVID started running wild, and we all know how that played out. But nonetheless, congratulations to Bob Stoops and the Arlington Renegades, the XFL champions. And, we'll see what happens when it comes to the next season, which I'm sure will be around this time next year or so. But yeah, congratulations to Arlington. They definitely deserve it. And, of course, I know if MF and I had our way, our respective teams would have won. I know MF would have loved to have seen his Vegas Vipers win the XFL championship. Goes Cerebral Viper on that, but that didn't happen. I damn sure would have loved to have seen the Houston Roughnecks, under my old buddy Wade Phillips, who had some great success in Buffalo, obviously in the late '90s, after he succeeded Marv Levy. But nonetheless, Bob Stoops, man, I mean, took Oklahoma to a national championship and had so many winning seasons for the Oklahoma Sooners. And now you can add this to his impressive trophy case, and this ranks up there as one of his best coaching jobs, maybe his best coaching job since he took Oklahoma to that national title in 2000 when they knocked off Florida State. So congratulations to Arlington, well deserved, and we'll wait and see what happens when it comes to next season. So to The Rock and Danny Garcia, well done. You did a great job, and I wish you all more success when it comes to this next season. And should there be another season, we most certainly look forward to covering it once again. So, all right. So with that, we move on to the USFL. Now I know we haven't had the USFL in a while. It's because we've had special programming, obviously. The previous 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago with our NFL draft recap special, and then of course our mega, and I do mean mega, schedule release special from last week. Go check it out in my archives. I mean, that was a fun ass show a week ago, and I'll tell you that right now. So we got the USFL, and well, I'll tell you what. Let me first set the table here. Week 6's USFL action begins on Saturday with a doubleheader at 12:30 Eastern between the Pittsburgh Maulers and the Memphis Showboats on USA. Then at 4 o'clock Eastern, MF's defending champion Birmingham Stallions will travel to Ford Field to take on the reeling Michigan Panthers on Fox. For Sunday's doubleheader action, the New Orleans Breakers will try to rebound after suffering their first loss last week when they take on the Philadelphia Stars at noon on FS1. And then finally, the New Jersey Generals will wrap up their 2-game road trip against the Gamblers at 4 o'clock on Fox. Week 5 featured some surprises as the 1-win Memphis Showboats delivered the New Orleans Breakers their first loss. And the Philadelphia Stars upset the New Jersey Generals thanks to 8 field goals. Yeah, you heard me right. 8 field goals from kicker Luis Aguilar. The underdogs were also profitable for the second straight week, going 4-0 against the spread and 4-0 straight up. Will the underdogs shine this week, or can the favorites pick themselves up and get back into the win column? Let's find out. First game will be Saturday at 12:30 on USA, and it will feature the Pittsburgh Maulers squaring off against the Memphis Showboats from the Liberty Bowl in Memphis. And Pittsburgh opening up as a 2.5-point favorite. The Maulers are starting to find their identity on offense, and it's paying off as they defeated the Panthers 23-7 last week. Pittsburgh quarterback Troy Williams has improved every week and had a tremendous performance in Week 5, completing 15 of 19 passes for 184 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. He also led both teams with 59 rushing yards and a score. The Maulers will look for that this weekend against the Showboats, who are coming off an impressive win last week over the Breakers. Memphis's defense came to play, holding New Orleans scoreless in the first half and forcing them into 3 turnovers. Even though the Showboats offense couldn't turn those turnovers into touchdowns, quarterback Cole Kelly and company did just enough to pull out the win. Kelly completed 24 of 36 passes for 224 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. The Showboats defense got after Breakers quarterback McLeod Bethel Thompson, sacking him 4 times and holding running back Wes Hills to 38 rushing yards on 14 carries. And it would not be a surprise to see Pittsburgh in another low-scoring game, especially given the defenses involved here. However, I like the Maulers to win on Saturday as Williams' dual-threat ability should negate the Showboats' pass rush, and Pitt's defense will lock down the Showboats' receivers on the outside. I got Pittsburgh winning this game. My final score, 21-16. The Pittsburgh Maulers over the Memphis Showboats. So MF, Pittsburgh Maulers, Memphis Showboats kick off Week 6 of the USFL.
All right. So, once we're talking about this game, let's break it down. So let's break it down. Let me see if I can find my notes here for USFL. All right. Look, I'm just gonna say it. It's been a very interesting season, to say the very least. Could have gone a number of different ways up to this point, but we've had some surprises up to this at this point in the season. I think it's been one of those type of situations where it could have gone a number of different ways. Let me see. It's kind of okay. I don't know why it's not working. There it goes. Got it. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Let's see. I'll go. Come on. Uh, all right. Come on. Come on. There we go. I want USFL. USFL. See. Right there. USFL. All right. So this is a very interesting situation. This is a very big week, as you may know. All right. So let's start off with the game on USA on Saturday. Look, as far as Memphis and Pittsburgh goes, I kind of feel like Pittsburgh is turning things around here. I think it's kind of one of those type of games where uh, Pittsburgh has just been it's been a little inconsistent. They are a lot more better on the defensive side than the offense. I kind of feel like Memphis is definitely could turn this around and win the game. So I got Memphis in that one. As far as Birmingham and Michigan goes, yeah, Birmingham is the hotter team. Yes, they haven't played so hot lately. They've been struggling a little bit. I'm not really happy about that.
No
Uh,
surprise, because
huh?
we all know that is your team. You kind of jumped the gun on me, MF. I wanted to break down the set up the quick schematics for that matchup for Birmingham.
Oh, are we just going one game at a time? I'm sorry. My
No,
bad.
that's okay.
I,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know we
we
were going one
can.
game at a time. So I got Memphis in the first one, and as far as the schematics goes, um,
Birmingham's a 5.5.
and I'm sticking with Birmingham regardless. Even going in, I was going to pick Birmingham anyway. So yeah, there's not really nothing much to say there. So Florio, I'll just give it back to you. I got Birmingham and I got Memphis for the first two games.
That's actually a good idea. Now that I think about it, let me set the table for the rest of the games, and I'll have you round out the rest of the action, and then I'll do the lead commentator bit on that. So
Okay.
you
Yeah.
got Pittsburgh and Memphis, which you mentioned. So
Yeah.
um, and Birmingham and Michigan, you talked about how you had Birmingham, which I definitely agree with that. Of course, because that's your team. So Birmingham, that game will be the Birmingham Stallions and the Michigan Panthers. That's the second half of the Saturday doubleheader, 4 o'clock on Fox. That will be at Ford Field in Detroit, obviously. So Birmingham opening up as a 5.5 point favorite there. The Sunday slate, the New Orleans Breakers will take on the Philadelphia Stars, high noon on Sunday on FS1. That'll also be at Ford Field in Detroit, and then the final game of the week. But yeah, by the way, that breaker, that New Orleans Philly game, that's actually the game of the week in the USFL.
Mm.
And New Orleans opening up as a 7 point favorite, and then the final game of the week, Sunday, 4 o'clock on Fox, the New Jersey Generals against the Houston Gamblers. So there's that. So, all right, MF, you said you had the Pittsburgh Maulers winning that first game against Memphis.
I had Memphis.
Oh, you got Memphis winning.
I
Okay.
had Memphis winning over Pittsburgh. I had Birmingham over Michigan. In the late game, in the Sunday slate,
New
I
Orleans
got
and Philly.
I got New Orleans remaining with their hot start. I think they'll go 5-1. And then on the last game, which is Houston versus New Jersey, I actually have Houston. I don't know. I feel like Houston's being disrespected here. Even with that 5 point spread and everything else, I feel like Houston is actually a better squad. So I'm actually going with Houston to knock off New Jersey and to win that game. So that's my setup. Anthony, it's yours.
Okay. All right, I already talked about the first game. So when it comes to the Birmingham Stallions and the Michigan Panthers, The Stallions got punched in their mouth by the Gamblers last week, allowing 20 points in the fourth quarter. MF, you
I
preach
know that was.
defense.
Yep.
We all know how much you preach the defense. I know when you saw that, you got to be like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, I was not happy.
They're like 20 points in the fourth quarter.
Are you bleeping me right now? Yeah.
We had this thing in the bag. We're the defending champions, for goodness sakes. Come on
Yep.
now.
Pretty much. You're absolutely right, Floyo. That's what I was acting like.
Yeah. Birmingham's run defense again got tested by Houston running back Mark Thompson, who had 78 yards and 3 touchdowns. Overall, another discouraging number here, MF. The Stallions gave up 135 yards on the ground, and now will have to face the struggling Michigan Panthers, who have a good defense but an inconsistent offense. If Michigan received consistent quarterback play from Josh Love or Carson Strong, they could have won last week. Michigan's defense forced the Pittsburgh Maulers into 2 turnovers and recorded 3 sacks, but the offense was stuck in neutral for the most part. Therefore, if the Panthers want to take down the Stallions, they must get Reggie Corbin and Stevie Scott III rolling on the ground. This running back duo was one of the best in the USFL last season and has played huge roles in both wins this season. In their 2 wins, Michigan is posting 117 rushing yards a game, but 86 rushing yards per game in 3 losses. I like Alex McGuff to pick up a road win here, but the Panther defense will keep the game close. Birmingham wins 24-20. New Orleans and Philly, the Breakers played their worst game of the season last week and suffered their first loss against the Showboats. McLeod Bethel Thompson was under a lot of pressure, which led to uncharacteristic mistakes that gave life to the Showboats. They cannot afford a repeat performance against the Stars, who are coming off a tough win against the Generals. Case Cookus was sacked 4 times last week by the Generals, but he didn't turn the ball over. However, the Stars' offense struggled inside the red zone, 0 for 4, and mustered just 61 rushing yards. That's not going to cut it against a Breaker squad scoring 27 points a game. If Hills can get going on the ground against the Stars' run defense, 152 yards a game allowed, Breakers should roll. And I got the Breakers winning this one 30-21. That's my final there. As far as the final game goes, New Jersey and Houston. In the final game of Week 6, the Generals will look to snap their 2-game losing streak against the Gamblers on Sunday afternoon. Houston is coming off a great win against Birmingham as they were without starting quarterback Kenji Bahar with an ankle injury. Without Bahar, the Gamblers leaned on running back Mark Thompson, who had 3 touchdowns, and backup quarterback Terry Wilson, who played well in this first start, 158 total yards and a passing touchdown. His lone touchdown pass was a 50-yard bomb in the second quarter to wide receiver Anthony Ratliff-Williams. I don't know if Bahar will play this weekend, but the Gamblers must continue to lean on Thompson as TJ Pledger was placed on injured reserve earlier this week. Meanwhile, the Generals outplayed the Stars in every statistical category on offense, but had 4 turnovers and were just 1 for 3 in the red zone. DeAndre Johnson wasn't terrible, 7 of 12 for 79 yards, 62 rushing yards and a touchdown. But he also wasn't good enough, getting replaced by Kyle Lauletta, who completed 10 of 12 passes for 111 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and an interception. If New Jersey eliminates the turnovers, it should win as it has a top 2 scoring defense and only allow 87 rushing yards a game. However, the Generals should be on upset alert. The Gamblers' defense is stout against the run and is not afraid of any challenge. But I disagree with you, MF. I got New Jersey pulling that one out. I'm going to say 24-21, the New Jersey Generals knock off the Gamblers. So that's all she wrote on that. So, all right, I believe it's now time for for our double main event. And we're going to start it off with the NBA Conference Finals, which started this past Tuesday night. As it is the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, the Denver Nuggets squaring off against the number 7 seed, the Los Angeles Lakers. So MF, the Lakers and Denver meeting in the Western Conference Finals. Does LeBron and the Lakers get back to the finals for the first time in 3 years and since the bubble, or Are we going to, or is this going to finally be the year that the upstart Denver Nuggets finally punched their first ever ticket to the NBA Finals? What a story that would be.
Yeah, you know what? Going into this, I had a lot of thoughts in my mind, and I gotta say it. I think it's Denver's time. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's going to be, that the Lakers." And look, the Lakers has had an amazing story. Their run is unbelievable. You know, absolutely incredible, and everything else. But I'll say this: what they have done, and I'm talking about the Denver Nuggets. They are quiet. They are slow. They haven't done anything wrong. They just continue to play the way they've been playing. And the thing is, everybody talks about it. Oh, it's boring basketball. It's this, it's that. There's not any flash or sizzle. Well, guess what? It doesn't necessarily have to be flash and sizzle to succeed in the NBA. I mean, my God, let's talk about last year. Let's talk about the San Antonio Spurs. Let's talk about Detroit basketball, the Detroit Pistons. They were never flashy. They were never amazing. They never had all this stuff. But what they did was they played it the right way. They played as a team. And I believe that is going to be what we got here. Obviously, a great start in this playoff already, because I guess we could spoil it. They're already up 2-0. For me, they are going to win it. They're going to the NBA Finals. Give me the Denver Nuggets to shock the world. They win it all. They win it in 6. Anthony, it's yours.
All right, the 3 things to watch for in this series. Number 1, Nikola Jokic versus Anthony Davis. For the first time in these playoffs, these 2 elite big men will get a supreme test. They are different players with different body types and skill sets, but bring the same impact. In terms of worth to his team, let's just say Jokic doesn't have LeBron James riding with him. That puts a lot of pressure on Jokic to be the heavy in this matchup. Even though Davis is a terrific shot blocker, Jokic will make it tough on him in the post because of his ability to follow his own miss, and also his soft touch and footwork around the rim. But on defense, Jokic must be at his best against Davis, who can stretch the floor and clearly has an edge in athleticism. Overall, this isn't a classic big man matchup in the normal sense, but it's an outstanding one nonetheless. Davis didn't see anyone significant in the first round against Memphis, with Steven Adams out, or the Warriors, and Jokic was tested only a bit more against Rudy Gobert and DeAndre Ayton. That changes for both this series. Number 2, LeBron's stamina, part 3. The 38-year-old force of nature is once again on a deep postseason run, and so far so good. He has actually conquered 3 opponents so far: Memphis, Golden State, and Father Time. LeBron was nearly flawless in the first 2 rounds, and the closer he gets to the championship trophy, the stronger his resolve will be. There's a good chance the Nuggets will be the team that causes him the least problems. Denver doesn't bring a defensive ace, certainly no one on the level of LeBron's last 2 defenders, Dylan Brooks and Andrew Wiggins. LeBron will get Aaron Gordon, a definite notch below, and if Gordon gets into foul trouble, there's no capable backup plan for Denver. If LeBron holds up physically in yet another series with only 1 day's rest between games, and there's no reason to think he won't, he'll have every reason to produce a strong series. And number 3, Bubble Murray revisited. Jamal Murray delivered a scorching playoff run in 2020 when for roughly a month he occupied a space enjoyed only by the very best in basketball. That's how unstoppable he was at times on the Disney campus. His 50-piece duel with Donovan Mitchell in the first round against Utah was must-watch, and his follow-ups against the Clippers and Lakers were solid. In all, Murray averaged 26.5 points, making half his shots. It was a problem for everyone assigned to stop him. That said, it's still his career highlight. Injury certainly played a role in that. He missed an entire season plus after knee surgery, and inconsistency has followed him since. He's an unorthodox point guard who yields playmaking duties to Jokic and can be a streaky shooter at times. He'll need to be at bubble peak to put the Lakers in a panic. The Lakers must respect him, but after trapping and harassing Steph Curry, a far greater threat, they're well prepared for the challenge. X Factor, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for the Denver Nuggets. Hard to believe, but the Lakers threw him into the pile a few summers ago in their trade for, wait for it, Russell Westbrook. Well. KCP was one of the 2020 championship heroes for the Lakers when he consistently hit big shots against Miami to help win that series. He was loved by LeBron and Anthony Davis for his willingness to show up and show out. They missed KCP up until this February when the roster remake reduced his absence. Meanwhile, the Nuggets traded for him to bring championship experience, improve their perimeter defense, and provide another shooter around Jokic. And for the most part, KCP has fulfilled those expectations. He falls too much in love with the three-pointer at times and probably lost a half step defensively from a few years ago. But he's here, and he's playing against his former team, and he has every incentive to deliver a strong series. His defense against D'Angelo Russell could be crucial. The number to know is 118.7. The Nuggets have scored 118.7 points per 100 possessions through the first two rounds, best mark for offensive efficiency in these playoffs. And they've scored that efficiently against two teams, Minnesota and Phoenix, that ranked in the top 10 defensively in the regular season. The Lakers have allowed just 106.5 points per 100 possessions through the first two rounds, the best mark for defensive efficiency in these playoffs. And they've been that good defensively against two teams, Memphis and Golden State, that ranked in the top 11 offensively in the regular season. So it's the number one offense versus the number one defense, and the paint will be where both will be tested. Denver has taken 53% of its shots, the highest rate in the playoffs in the paint, shooting 57.2%, sixth best there. The Lakers, meanwhile, have allowed their opponents to shoot just 51%, second lowest in the paint. That mark is just 47.9% with Anthony Davis on the floor. 3 months ago, the Nuggets were a strong favorite to reach the West Finals as the soon-to-be top seed. Meanwhile, the Lakers were a mess. Then came the LA rebirth, and here they are. The team that all of a sudden nobody wanted to play. Even during their tough times, the Lakers still had LeBron and AD. They just weren't healthy. The whole league knew that what LA was capable of doing once it regained health. As a bonus, the Lakers also jettisoned Russell Westbrook, and the improvement began in earnest. While the Lakers' rotational pieces have been better than expected and are more consistent than the Nuggets bench, this series really can and probably should come down to this. LA has 2 stars and the Nuggets 1. Stars matter in the postseason, and no offense to Murray, Denver is running behind on that count. Also, the Lakers still haven't reached their ceiling as a team. They could touch it. I thought they were going to touch it in this series and deny Jokic for the second time in 4 years. But originally, going into this series, I had the Lakers winning this series in 7 games originally. But after what I've seen in these first 2 games, I'm going to have to make a strong change of mind on this one. I'm thinking Denver wins this series. This thing could go. I think I could see LA getting one in Staples. I really do. I think LA can get one in Staples. But I think Denver ultimately wins the series. I think maybe 5, at the least 5, maybe 6. But regardless, I've got the Denver Nuggets winning the Western Conference Championship and going to the NBA Finals for the first time in franchise history. And MF, if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm kind of rooting for Denver to win this series. I would love to see Denver make the finals. I mean,
Yeah, I think so too. I can't deny it either. Can't deny that.
For many years, they were a laughing stock. They were always at the bottom of the barrel for so many years.
Yeah.
Had some good years here and there. Of course, their biggest moment in postseason history was, of course, 1994 when they were the number 8 seed and shocked the world. One of the greatest upsets in NBA playoff history when they knocked off a Seattle Supersonics team that many felt were going to go all the way that year.
Yeah.
But we'll never forget that memorable image of Dikembe Mutombo. That's it. You know the image.
Collapsing on the court with the ball over his head as he is in a state of shock as he realized, oh my God, I'm going to the NBA. I just knocked out. Yeah.
The odds-on favorites.
The odds-on favorites. Yep.
Yeah. And that started and if it wasn't for that, the upsets that we see in the playoffs nowadays never would happen. I mean, that set the bar. But nonetheless, I got the Denver Nuggets winning this series, and it will make that Dikembe Mutombo moment. It'll surpass that as the greatest moment in franchise history, should they pull this off. But see what happens. So Denver up 2-0. Unbelievable. What a story. And we just gotta wait and see if they can hang on to it. as the series shifts to the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Game number 3, Saturday night on ABC. So, game 1, Denver won 132 to 126, and Denver wins game 2 tonight, 108-103. So Denver up 2-0. So with that, we move on to the Eastern Conference Finals, featuring the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, Michael Bullock's Boston Celtics, squaring off against the number 8 seed in the East, the Miami Heat. And so far, we're 1 game in, and the Miami Heat stealing game 1 in Boston, 123 to 116 last night. Miami up 1-0. Game 2 tomorrow night at TD Garden in Boston. All games on TNT, just to let you know. And the West, all games on ESPN, with the exception of game 3. That will be on ABC. But other than that, all the other games on ESPN. So, all right, let's get into this series now. The 3 things to watch for. Number 1, Miami's defense on Jason Tatum. The Heat typically stick to their defensive fundamentals and don't get too fancy against particular individual threats. But Tatum roasted Philadelphia in Game 7, scoring 51 points for the highest personal total in the history of NBA Game 7s. Also, memories of Jalen Brunson's elusive trickery from Game 6 against Miami are still fresh. He got 41 points against a variety of defensive looks, and Miami's saving grace was a shortage of scoring help from other Knicks. Number 2, might Boston revert in its starting lineup? Celtics coach Joe Mazzulla had a light bulb moment before Game 6 against the Sixers, starting big man Robert Williams III next to Al Horford, rather than staggering their use. It was an idea that worked last spring, and it worked again to close out Philadelphia. But against the Heat, Boston might do better going back to Derek White with Tatum, Brown, Horford, and Marcus Smart. It potentially could prompt a counter from the Heat to sit down Kevin Love and use Caleb Martin in the spot with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Max Strus, and Gabe Vincent. And number 3, more glare on the coaching matchup. Late in his first year on the job, Mazzulla was considered to be at a disadvantage against the Sixers' Doc Rivers, one of the league's most accomplished coaches. Now he is matched up with arguably the best in the NBA in Eric Spoelstra. From Miami's in-series and in-game adjustments to its climb from play-in tournament status a month ago, his teams often overachieve and rarely fall short of expectations. Few outside the Heat's film room expected them to reach this round, while anything shy of a finals return will be seen as a setback for Boston. X Factor, will playoff Jimmy get enough scoring help? While Miami will have to cope with Tatum, Boston will be dealing with Jimmy Butler, whose zeal for big stages and clutch moments is his most impressive trait. He is averaging 31.1 points on 52.7% shooting, with almost 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals. Already, he has had nights with 56, 42, and 35 points. Since turning his ankle in Game 1 against the Knicks, Butler has looked more mortal, 24.5 points a game on 42% accuracy, only 1 of 8 on threes. With multiple Celtics defenders likely to split time on him, Brown, Smart, and White, the next Heat options will loom large. Tyler Hero reportedly is still a couple weeks away, at best, since fracturing his right hand in the opener against Milwaukee. Bam Adebayo is the guy then, averaging 18.1 this postseason after chipping in 25 in the 4 regular season meetings with Boston. The continued resurrection of Duncan Robinson, a lost soul who shot only 33% from the arc during the season, but surprised with about 43% success, 26 of 61 in 2 playoff rounds, seems essential. Number to know is 16.8. In these playoffs, the Heat have outscored their opponents by 16.8 points per 100 possessions in 194 minutes with Duncan Robinson on the floor. That's the best on-court mark among 138 players who've averaged at least 10 minutes a game. First of all, it's amazing that Robinson has played 194 playoff minutes, given that he didn't play that much, 190 over the last 3 months of the regular season and didn't see the floor in the Heat's 2 play-in tournament games. He was called into action when both Tyler Hero and Victor Oladipo suffered injuries in the first round, and he's been effective, shooting 43% from three-point range, 26 of 61. But that plus 16.8 with Robinson on the floor speaks to the success of the Heat's bench in general. Jimmy Butler has been the star, but they've been really good, plus 14.7 per 100 when he's been off the floor. Despite the injuries to Hero and Oladipo, Miami had better depth than both Milwaukee and New York. The Celtics have also been at their best with a reserve Malcolm Brogdon on the floor, outscoring their opponents by 11.4 points per 100 possessions in his 361 playoff minutes. Brogdon has been even better, 30 of 69, 43.5% from beyond the arc than Robinson, and he's more likely to be on the floor down the stretch of a close game. The Heat play a lot of those. These are two teams that rely heavily on their stars, but bench minutes could be critical, as they have been for both teams thus far. Miami has been the grindingest team of this postseason to advance this far, and that's not going to change. Anything more now is gravy, compared to the pressure on Boston not to go backwards from last year's finals appearance. In Celtics guard Malcolm Brogdon's view, his team would be making a mistake if it relied too much on its multi-threat scoring punch. It's who's going to out-tough, who's going to play harder than the other team, Brogdon told NBA TV after the Game 7 win. It's going to come down to rebounding. It's going to come down to getting stops on the defensive end. It also should come down to Boston's greater depth, its variety of looks at both ends, and a renewed confidence from surviving the Sixers with consecutive elimination wins. Boston wins the series. Yes, they may have lost game 1, but I still think the Boston Celtics are going to win this series. I think they'll do it in at least 6 games, maybe 7 like last year. I don't know, but 6, maybe 7. I still think the Boston Celtics win this series. But if Miami were to win this series and go back to the finals again, I would not at all be surprised considering how well they've been playing. So it honestly can and will go either way, but I just still believe in Boston. I mean, I'm as much of a dreamer about this as Bullock is. I mean, we all know Bullock's been dreaming for the day that his Celtics win at least one more championship in his lifetime, and they came so close to finishing the story last year, but they ran into the dynasty that is the Golden State Warriors. But should they get back there this time around, they won't have to deal with them. That's the good news. But it's going to be a tough out, whether it's LeBron and the Lakers or the Denver Nuggets, regardless of who comes out of the West. But in the end, I still think Boston wins the series. Yes, minor hiccup in game 1, but I think the Celtics will bounce back and win the series at least 6, but don't be surprised if it goes 7 like last year. So Boston wins, goes back to the finals, and MF, they take one step closer to finishing the story. What says you?
I was feeling confident about Boston until last night. Anthony, the Miami Heat are possessed. That team is... Okay, when they knocked out the Milwaukee Bucks, that took like gusto, and that opened my eyes. Then the way they handled New York, even though, yes, that was kind of a no big surprise there, but they dominated the series. And then they took Boston in their own house and did what they did. Anthony, I'm sorry. Maybe 1 is a mirage, maybe 2, but the real team of destiny is the Miami Heat. And as much as I know we love Boston and we love to root for the Celtics and everything else, from what I saw last night, I don't think Boston can survive. I don't think they got that killer instinct that in other years that they would have. We saw it against Philly where they take games off. And you can't do that with Miami. We saw what happened. The third quarter alone said everything I needed it to see about that series. Jimmy Butler is without a doubt one of the best players out there, and he's dominating like nothing. And I think it's going to go 7, but I got Miami winning the series. I do. I think Miami wins the series. I think they do what Boston did to them a couple of years ago. I think they upend them and knock them out in 7 games in TD Garden in Boston. So, yeah, there's really nothing more for me to say. Anthony, it's yours.
All right, in the other half of our double main event, the NHL Conference Finals, which actually started tonight. We got the Eastern Conference Finals. And oh boy, we got a 5-star classic and then some. We got a double overtime game going on right now. It's in double overtime. The Florida Panthers, the cardiac Cinderella Florida Panthers, squaring off against the Carolina Hurricanes, the battle for the Prince of Wales trophy. So, MF, there's nothing left to say. I mean, we had a rough time figuring out which series we were going to do. We decided on this one, and if this game right now is any indication, I think we may have made the right choice when it comes to this series. Although you can't really sleep on Dallas and Vegas either. That's also a good matchup. But there isn't much left to say on this to set it up. I mean, Carolina Hurricanes expected to be here, but did anybody realistically think the Florida Panthers were even going to be here, especially going up against the record-setting Boston Bruins in the first round? And look what happened. They beat them, and then they knocked off the Toronto Maple Leafs to get to this point. Whereas the Carolina Hurricanes, getting by the I don't remember who they. Yeah, they beat the I believe it was the Islanders, wasn't it? Yeah, they knocked off the New York Islanders in the first round, and then knocked off the upstart New Jersey Devils in the second round. So there's that. So that's pretty much the table setting right here. So MF, come on in, Doc. The Doc Emmerich to my Eddie Olczyk, and the Gary Thorne to my Bill Clement. Carolina, like I said, expected to be here, but because they were one of the favorites in the East, but the Florida Panthers, oh my goodness! I mean, you want to talk about a Cinderella run? This ranks right up there with their Cup run in '96.
It does. It's unbelievable what Florida has done, and a lot of people were really apprehensive about it, and now all of a sudden here they are, and I think a lot of people didn't take them seriously until they started making their run, because if you remember when they knocked out the Boston Bruins in the first round, the shock, the awe, the stun reaction. I think a lot of people were like, nah, all right, great, fine. It was a great win, but they're not gonna go beyond that next round. Then they won that next series. Now you're thinking, all right, wait a minute. This might actually be they might be a bigger threat than we thought. And now all of a sudden here we are, and we're talking about them and Carolina. And they almost won it. Yeah, there was goalie interference. I will admit it was goalie interference, folks. So relax. But it's gonna be a great series, no doubt about it. This is gonna be a very interesting, fun series. At the end, we'll wait and see. But God, I gotta go with the team with the hot hand. And right now, that's Florida. I can't believe I'm saying it. They knocked out Boston. They knocked out Toronto. Now in my mind, they beat Carolina in 7. Oh my God, man. This is going to be the most magical run to the Cup final ever if Florida can pull this off. They're the team of destiny. They got that team of destiny look more than anything else. Anthony, I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going with the stunner. We gave them 0 chance against Boston. 0 chance against Toronto. This team keeps making us eat our words. I'm not going to make that mistake now. Florida goes to the final. They win the series in 7. Florio, it's yours.
Yes, indeed. I mean, the Hurricanes and Panthers punched their tickets by winning their second round series. This is Carolina's first trip to the conference final since 2019 and Florida's first since 1996. Carolina took care of business with relative ease in round 2, knocking off New Jersey in 5 games. Any concerns about the Canes' offense were thrown out the window as the club averaged more than 5 goals a game against New Jersey. Florida continued its magical 2023 postseason run by rolling over Toronto in 5. The Panthers' defense held the Leafs' core forward to minimal output, and the team used its physical style to outwork its Atlantic Division foe. This is the first time these two teams are facing each other in the playoffs. A series win for the Hurricanes would mean the club's first Stanley Cup final appearance since winning it all in 2006, when their head coach, Rod Brindamore, was the team captain. and Peter Laviolette was the head coach of that team. The Panthers would be playing in just their second Stanley Cup final if they advance. We all remember Florida lost in a 4-game sweep to the Colorado Avalanche in 1996. One of the great MF Screaming Michael Fletcher moments of all time, UA Krupp. I remember that all the way to this day. There is a key storyline, and that key storyline is, will Sergei Bobrovsky continue to turn back the clock? Turning to Bobrovsky in the first round was a turning point for the Panthers. After Alex Lyon started the first 3 games, Bobrovsky took over in the middle of Game 3 and hasn't given way since. Bobrovsky's stats weren't great against the Bruins. He allowed at least 3 goals in 4 of his starts, gave up 5 in 2 separate games, finished with a .394 goals against average and an .891 save percentage. But winning the last 3 games of the series to knock off the Stanley Cup favorite masked his underlying abilities. Against Toronto, Bobrovsky was stellar, especially with the offense having a harder time scoring. He allowed only 2 goals in each of the 5 games and finished with a save percentage of .943 in the series. The Hurricanes are an excellent defensive team, but their offense has exploded this postseason despite missing key scoring wings. Carolina win low-scoring 1-goal games and blow out opponents, just as the New Jersey Devils. Bobrovsky is showing signs of being the goaltender that won 2 Vezina trophies and was worth a $70 million contract. Florida will need him to continue being dominant in the crease. If 2 Eastern Conference playoff teams have been overlooked throughout this postseason, it's these 2. The New York Islanders were seen as a potential threat to upset the Canes in the first round, and in the second round, all the talk was about the Devils coming off a win over the New York Rangers. The same applied to the Panthers. They were brushed aside in the first round conversation as they went against the record-setting Boston Bruins, and they were put on the back burner for their series versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. Talk about the will to win. The Panthers have it. Paul Maurice's crew has outworked its first 2 playoff opponents, scraping together dirty, grimy wins, but grit and determination can only take a team so far. With the Hurricanes' offensive worries having vanished and coupled with their highly structured defense, I think they end the Panthers' Cinderella run in the conference finals. They could end the Panthers' Cinderella run in the conference finals. Originally, MF, I'll be honest with you, I had Carolina winning this series in 6 games going in. But, these Florida Panthers, I mean, they are just so hard to root against. I mean, after what they did to Boston and then after what they've done to Toronto, I mean, they're quietly becoming America's team. And you know how much I love underdog stories. I mean, what a story this would be, and what an underdog story this would be for this team. And this would rank up there with their Stanley Cup, their magical run in 96. And that year, they beat the Boston Bruins. They also beat the 2 best teams in the Eastern Conference that year in 96. You remember the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And both of those and those Flyer and Penguin teams in 96 were loaded. Philly, of course, had the Legion of Doom line, Eric Lindros, John LeClair, Michael Remberg, Ron Hextall in goal. And then Pittsburgh, of course, with the 2-headed monster known as Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr. And yet they still did what they did. But then they ran into Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, and the Colorado Avalanche, Patrick Waugh, and of course, MF, your boy, UA Krupp, which I'll never forget that moment for as long as I live. So it stuck with me from the day it happened all the way till now. I have never, ever forgotten that moment. But originally, I had Carolina in 6, but I think Florida could win the series. I mean, MF makes a great point. So I'll take a chance on Florida to win in 6, but if in at least 6, maybe 7. But if Carolina wins this series, don't be surprised if they do. MF, you and I should know. Look what they did against New Jersey, for goodness sakes. I mean, it was an uneventful series because, we had a lot of blowouts in almost every game except for the clincher, which we had that golden overtime goal moment. But other than that, it was a meh series. But anyways, I'll take a chance on Florida, but don't be surprised if Carolina wins. Don't. So with that being said, let's move on to the Western Conference Finals that start tomorrow night. It's a matchup of the Dallas Stars squaring off against the Vegas Golden Knights. Game 1 is tomorrow night at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. And this is a rematch of the 2020 Western Conference Final in the bubble in Edmonton. For the second time in 4 years, the Golden Knights and Stars are meeting for a berth in the Stanley Cup Finals. Vegas defeated Edmonton in the second round. Golden Knights struggled to contain the Oilers' potent power play, but dominated at 5-on-5 to knock out Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and company in 6 games. Dallas had its hands full with the Seattle Kraken in the second round, but the Stars managed a victory over the Kraken in 7. Roope Hintz and Joe Pavelski played pivotal roles in the team advancing, while 20-year-old Wyatt Johnston scored the decisive goal in Dallas's 2-1 Game 7 win over Seattle this past Monday night. Both the Stars and Golden Knights have recently played in a Stanley Cup final. Vegas made it in the club's inaugural season in 2018, but lost to the Washington Capitals in 5 games. After beating Vegas, Dallas played in the 2020 final against the Tampa Bay Lightning in the bubble in Edmonton, but lost in 6. The Golden Knights have never won a Stanley Cup, while the Stars have just one Stanley Cup win, which came in 1999 when they knocked off the Buffalo Sabres in 6 games. The infamous Brett Hull triple overtime goal, as you know. And here's what we need to know about this series. The key storyline is which team's stars shine the brightest. Vegas and Dallas each have exceptional depth up and down their lineups. However, when it comes to success this postseason, it's been all about the big guns. On the Golden Knights side, it's been hard to tell this is Jack Eichel's first postseason. The 26-year-old leads the team in points with 14 and has recorded at least 1 point in 7 of his 11 playoff games. Mark Stone has played well coming off back surgery, right behind Eichel with 12. For the Stars, it's all about Hintz and Pavelski. Hintz's 19 points lead the team, and his 9 goals are first on the team. The veteran Pavelski missed most of the series against the Minnesota Wild in the first round, but responded by scoring 8 goals in the series against the Seattle Kraken. It's cliche, but every team needs their stars to show up in the postseason. It's what has gotten the Stars and Golden Knights this far. Each club is going to look to their big players to come up once again in this Western Conference Finals series. It's not easy to contain the Edmonton Oilers' high-powered offense, but the Vegas Golden Knights did enough, especially at 5-on-5. It'll be more of the same versus the Dallas Stars. No one on the planet is at the level of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, but the Stars' top forwards play a fast north-south style. Dallas is also getting production up and down the lineup. It no longer is relying solely on its top forward unit of Pavelski, Hintz, and Jason Robertson. While Vegas was impressive in its series win over Edmonton, the uncertainty in the crease is a concern. It's difficult to have faith in any of the goalies outdueling Ottinger while keeping Dallas's offense in check. I'm going with the Dallas Stars to get another crack to win the second Stanley Cup in club history. Dallas Stars win the Western Conference Finals, win the Clarence Campbell Bowl, and they do it in 6 games. But if Vegas were to win, I would not at all be surprised. I wouldn't. So, but that's my story. So, MF, Doc, Dallas and Vegas. Who's walking out with the Clarence Campbell Bowl?
Yeah, no, this is going to be a very interesting series to say the very least. You know what? I have to say, if there's one team that's really caught my eye, has been the Vegas Golden Knights, man. And what Vegas has been doing has been remarkable. I know a couple of years ago, that first year, that magical run they made to the Stanley Cup final, it was one of those that I don't think we ever saw or ever thought we would ever see in our lifetime. Somebody making that kind of ascension all the way up to the final. And then you start to see, the road getting a little, got a little more harder, a little more whatever. And it just feels like, it's going to be everything. And you kind of feel like we got to wait and see how it plays out and the whole 9 yards. And I'm just having such a great time with it up to this point. And yeah, it's been remarkable. Dallas is a team that made a great run. Absolutely amazing for them to make it all the way this far out. And then we'll see how it plays out. But, dude, if you want to talk about a team of destiny or a team that's going to make a run for the title, to me, it's Vegas. Vegas Golden Knights wins the Clarence Campbell Bowl, 6 games. Anthony, it's yours.
All right. So MF has Florida and Vegas in the Stanley Cup final, whereas I've got Florida against Dallas. But we'll see what happens. So with that will put the ball on this edition of TXN Sports World. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in as always. Unfortunately, Michael Bullock did not show up again. So with that being said, we'll probably I think we're gonna have to pull a 2-for-1 deal come tomorrow night. So let's set the table. 10:30 tomorrow night. Special start time at 10:30 because AEW Rampage is going to be on earlier again. So it'll be on at 6:30 tomorrow night. AEW Rampage. So tomorrow night, the Cerebral Smack Talk, we will have. We'll have AEW Rampage. We will have Friday Night SmackDown, and we will also have games 1 and 2, a 2-for-1 deal in the Celtics chat for the as we discuss games, as we recap games 1 and 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Michael Bullock's Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat, and that'll be tomorrow night. And then Monday we do it all again, Ridiculously Raw, right back here on the Tone 25, Monday Night Raw. And special Tony's take, I will be previewing the Impact Wrestling Under Siege special that goes down next Friday night in Canada. So that'll be on Impact Plus. So I will give you the rundown of that card for that show. So that'll be on Monday, and then Wednesday, of course, and then Monday as well. We'll also have the Game 3 edition of the Celtics chat, and then Wednesday. Actually, I just want to make sure I'm staying. Yes, it'll be Game 3. That's right. It is Game 3. Yep. Okay. Wednesday, Wednesday Night Madness. You got NXT, AEW Dynamite, and the Game 4 edition of the Celtics chat, and then next week, TXN Sports World. We'll preview Week 7 of the USFL, and that's really all there is right now, unless any other big stories come up. So, if anything else comes up, we'll address it properly. So that's it. So until tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk over on the MX channel of Race Bay 95, Anthony Floyo here for Good Old MF, Michael Fletcher, and in spirit, Michael Bullock, and of course the First Lady Dee Dee Woodson. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah, throw the Fortune 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed Friday. And until tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk, you've been watching TXN Sports World right here on the Tone 25 on YouTube and StreamYard.com. For everybody who's been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Floyo, so long. Bye, everybody. Bye.